You want me to kill what? Zixka blinked all four of her crystalline eyes in rapid succession, mandibles clicking with barely concealed irritation. The holographic contract floating between her and her latest client showed an unmistakable image of her target. A human male, approximately 175 centimeters tall, brown hair, unremarkable features. The kind of being you'd pass 1,000 times in a space station corridor without ever noticing. Not what? Who? The Vermilion diplomat corrected, his tentacles writhing nervously. And it's not just any human. This one has proven problematic for certain interested parties. It's a human, Zixka emphasized, as if explaining something to a particularly dim-witted larvae. The species that still thinks putting cheese on everything counts as culinary innovation. The ones who made first contact while wearing what they called Hawaiian shirts and tried to teach the Galactic Council to surf. Those humans? The diplomat's skin shifted from its natural purple to an anxious shade of mauve. This particular human has been interfering with some rather delicate trade negotiations. The syndicate wants him removed. Quietly. Zixka leaned back in her chair, the specially designed furniture accommodating her arachnoid form. In 3 centuries of wet work across 17 star systems, she'd never turned down a contract. She was the best in the business, the kind of assassin whose very name made planetary governors increase their security budget. Her last job had involved eliminating an entire Hive Queen's royal guard, using nothing but a sonic toothbrush and some creative applications of food coloring. But a human? It seemed almost beneath her dignity. Triple your offer, she chittered, and I want details on why this particular hairless ape is worth my time. The diplomat's tentacles twisted into what passed for a grimace in his species. Done. Though I should warn you, he has offspring. Oh, how terrifying. A human larvae. Will it drool on me? His daughter is 7 standard years old. The target has primary custody. Zixka waved one of her front legs dismissively. Irrelevant. I'll complete the contract while the offspring is at their primitive educational facility. Simple, clean, professional. As you say. The diplomat transferred the payment and dossier. The syndicate thanks you for your service. After her client slithered away, Zixka spent several hours studying the target's information. Thomas Miller, age 34, occupation independent cargo hauler. Current residence Omega Station Level 47, Block C, 1 dependent Emily Miller, age 7. Spouse deceased, shuttle accident, 3 years prior. Nothing in his record suggested anything remarkable. This will be the easiest 10 million credits I've ever earned, she thought. She was wrong. She was so very, very wrong. The first attempt should have been simple. Zixka had identified the target's regular morning routine. He took his offspring to the education center, then stopped at something called a coffee shop before heading to the docking bays. A simple neurotoxin in his beverage, and the contract would be complete before lunch. She had not counted on the chaos that was a human child during their morning preparations. Daddy, I can't find Mr. Snuggles. Honey, we're running late. Can't you take your backup stuffed animal today? No, it has to be Mr. Snuggles. He's the only one who knows how to fight the space pirates. Zixka watched through her surveillance feed as her target spent 20 minutes searching for what appeared to be a plush representation of an Earth creature called a penguin. By the time they finally left their housing unit, her carefully planned window of opportunity had passed. No matter, she thought. There will be other chances. The second attempt involved a classic, unfortunate maintenance accident in the cargo bay. Humans were notoriously fragile. A simple fall from the proper height would look entirely natural. She had disabled the safety systems and was waiting for her target to begin his pre-flight checks when... Daddy, look what I made in art class today. The target turned away from the precisely calculated death trap, kneeling to examine what appeared to be a mess of paper and adhesive. Wow, sweetheart, is that our family? Uh-huh, see, that's you and that's me and that's Mommy as an angel and that's our new friend. New friend? The spider lady who's been watching us. I saw her yesterday when I was playing in the ventilation shaft. Zixka froze. The human child had spotted her? Impossible. Her camouflage technology was the finest in the galaxy. The target just laughed. Honey, what have I told you about making up stories? But Daddy, she's real. She has pretty crystal eyes and she moves like this. The child proceeded to do a surprisingly accurate impression of arachnoid locomotion. Emily, we've talked about this. No more climbing in the ventilation system. It's dangerous, and you're going to give Daddy a heart attack. Okay? The child's lower lip trembled in what Zixka recognized as a prelude to their species' emotional defense mechanism. But can we at least get ice cream? The target checked his chronometer and sighed. I suppose we have time for a quick stop. Zixka watched them leave, her mandibles twitching in frustration. She needed a new approach. Over the next 2 weeks, Zixka attempted. A random mugging gone wrong, failed when the target's offspring insisted on stopping to pet something called a space hamster in a shop window, causing them to miss the planned ambush. Poisoned food delivery, aborted when the child decided she wanted to cook dinner herself, resulting in something called breakfast for dinner that looked so horrifying even Zixka felt sorry for the target. Remote viral programming of the target's ship, cancelled when she discovered the child had somehow reprogrammed the entire operating system to run educational games. Traditional sniper shot, missed when the target bent down to tie his offspring's shoe at the exact wrong moment. It was becoming problematic. Even worse, she was starting to notice things. The way the target always listened intently to his offspring's rambling stories about her day, how he worked extra shifts to afford the specialized art supplies she loved, the little notes he packed in her lunch with terrible drawings and worse jokes. It's irrelevant, she told herself. He's just a target. The fact that he's an adequate caregiver to his offspring doesn't change anything. But it did change things. Every failed attempt gave her more unwanted glimpses into their lives. She learned that the target told his offspring bedtime stories about her mother's adventures as a pilot, that he kept taking extra jobs so he could save for something called college, that he still cried sometimes, late at night, looking at old holopics of his mate. The final straw came during attempt number 12. Zixka had finally managed to corner the target alone in a maintenance corridor. Her venomous stinger was poised for strike. This was it. No more complications, no more delays. Are you going to hurt my daddy? She spun around to find the offspring standing behind her, clutching that ridiculous stuffed penguin. You should not be here, small human, Zixka said. I followed you. You're not very sneaky, you know. I saw you at the park yesterday, too. You were pretending to be a bush, but bushes don't have crystal eyes. Zixka's mandibles clicked in annoyance. Return to your educational facility immediately. The child took a step forward, showing none of the fear most species exhibited when confronting an apex predator. Please don't hurt my daddy. He's all I have left. I already lost Mommy. I don't want to be alone. I have a contract. Zixka found herself explaining, wondering why she was even engaging with this conversation. What's a contract? A promise to complete a task in exchange for payment. The child's face scrunched up in thought. Like when Daddy promises to take me for ice cream if I clean my room? Not exactly. But promises can be broken, right? Daddy says sometimes we have to break promises if keeping them would hurt someone. That is not how my profession works. The child hugged her stuffed animal tighter. What if I promised you something better? Zixka's curiosity got the better of her. What could you possibly offer that would exceed 10 million credits? A family. The answer was so unexpected that Zixka's natural camouflage flickered. Explain. Well, you're always alone. I see you watching us, and you look sad. Like how Daddy looks at Mommy's pictures sometimes. But you could be part of our family. Daddy always says family is worth more than all the credits in the galaxy. That is... Zixka struggled to find the right words. That is not how this works. I am an assassin. The most feared killer in 17 star systems. I do not become part of families. The child shrugged. Why not? You could help Daddy with his ship. You're really good at fixing things, I've seen you. And you could teach me how to be sneaky. And we could have picnics and... Emily? The target's voice came from around the corner. Honey, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in school. Zixka moved to strike. It was now or never, but found herself frozen as the child grabbed one of her legs. Daddy, come meet our new family member! What followed was arguably the most awkward conversation in the history of human-alien relations. There was a lot of shouting from the target, excited bouncing from the offspring, and mandible clicking from Zixka as she tried to explain why she was not going to kill anyone today. 3 months later, you failed. The Vermilion diplomat's tentacles were practically tied in knots. The great Zixka, terror of the outer rings, failed to eliminate a simple human cargo hauler? Zixka chittered in amusement as she watched her target, no, Thomas, chase his offspring around the park through her comm screen. The contract has been cancelled. Your payment has been returned in full. The Syndicate will not be pleased. The Syndicate, Zixka said, her crystalline eyes glinting dangerously. we'll find that their operations in this sector have become significantly more transparent to certain authorities. Anonymous tips are such a fascinating thing, aren't they? You wouldn't dare. I would. I have. And should anything unfortunate happen to my friends, well, I have so many more interesting files to share. The diplomat's skin turned an interesting shade of gray. This isn't over. Oh, but it is. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a picnic to attend. The small human is attempting to teach me something called freeze tag. I find I rather enjoy it. After ending the call, Zixka emerged from her hiding spot. She still hadn't broken the habit of lurking, but now it was more of a game than a professional necessity. Emily spotted her immediately. The child's ability to track her movements remained uncanny. "Aunt Zix, you made it!" The young human launched herself at the assassin, wrapping tiny arms around one of her legs. "Did you bring the special space cookies?" "Of course." Zixka produced a container of baked goods she'd specially commissioned from a xenobiological pastry chef, though I still maintain that putting cheese in desserts is an abomination. "That's just because you haven't tried the right kind yet," Thomas said, joining them with a grin. "Give it time. We'll convert you eventually." Zixka watched as Emily arranged their picnic with all the serious dedication of a tactical operation, insisting that Mr. Snuggles needed his own plate. "He's a very proper penguin, Aunt Zix." Thomas caught her eye and smiled. They'd moved past the whole "you tried to kill me" thing surprisingly quickly once he'd understood she was now essentially his daughter's self-appointed bodyguard. The most feared assassin in 17 star systems settled down on the picnic blanket, accepting a juice box with as much dignity as she could muster. The child was right. This was worth far more than 10 million credits, even if they did put cheese on everything. "Aunt Zix, what's the proper way to disarm a plasma grenade?" The question came during what humans called breakfast time, causing Thomas to choke on his coffee. Zixka's mandibles clicked in what had become her equivalent of a laugh. "Emily, honey," Thomas managed between coughs, "maybe we could stick to more age-appropriate topics, like your science project?" "But this is for my science project. We're supposed to present on important safety procedures in space travel. Everyone else is doing boring stuff like airlock protocols." Zixka carefully arranged her limbs in what she'd learned was a non-threatening posture. "Perhaps we could focus on less explosive aspects of safety, like how to properly verify the credentials of a ship's maintenance crew?" "That's just a fancy way of saying how to spot bad guys," Emily said, wielding her spoon like a scanner. "Which I'm already really good at, thanks to you." Thomas shot Zixka a look that clearly said, "We'll discuss this later." She responded with an innocent blink of all four eyes. It wasn't her fault that the offspring had naturally excellent observational skills, though perhaps teaching her the 17 warning signs of a concealed weapon had been a bit much. Life on Omega Station had changed dramatically since Zixka had failed her contract and gained an unexpected family. Her former profession's skills had proven surprisingly transferable to protecting cargo shipments and conducting enhanced security consultations for legitimate businesses. The fact that various criminal enterprises suddenly found their operations disrupted whenever they came near Thomas's shipping routes was, of course, pure coincidence. "Oh," Emily bounced in her chair, nearly upending her cereal. "Can you come to Career Day next week, please? Everyone else is bringing boring parents who work in maintenance or shipping or—" She caught herself and gave her father an apologetic look. "I mean, Daddy's job is super important, but nobody else can bring a former space ninja." "I was an assassin, not a ninja," Zixka corrected automatically. "The distinction is important for tax purposes." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "You pay taxes?" "I file under independent security consultant now. Your human bureaucracy is fascinating. Did you know your forms still have a checkbox for non-terrestrial entity with more than 3 hearts? Before Thomas could respond, his comm unit chimed with an urgent message. His face grew serious as he read it. "Everything okay, Daddy?" Emily asked, picking up on the tension. "Just some trouble with our next cargo run," he said, trying to sound casual. "Nothing to worry about." Zixka's enhanced senses picked up his elevated heart rate and subtle muscle tension. Something was very wrong. She sent a discreet ping to her network of informants, former colleagues who now owed her favors after she'd chosen retirement over eliminating them. "Emily," she said smoothly, "isn't it time for your educational facility? I believe today is show and tell regarding exoplanetary biology." "Oh yeah, I brought pictures of your molting process." "You what?" Thomas and Zixka asked simultaneously. Gotta go. Love you, Daddy. Love you, Aunt Zix. The small human tornado grabbed her bag and dashed out, leaving behind a half-eaten breakfast and two very concerned adults. As soon as Emily was gone, Zixka's demeanor shifted. Tell me. Thomas ran a hand through his hair, a human stress gesture she'd learned to recognize. The syndicate's getting bolder. They've been targeting independent haulers, especially ones running supplies to the outer colonies. 3 ships have disappeared in the past week. And you've received a contract for that route. Yeah, triple the usual pay, but... He gestured helplessly. I can't turn it down. These colonies depend on independent haulers. Without supplies, they would suffer greatly. Zixka finished. She understood. It was one of the many things that had drawn her to this strange human. His persistent need to help others, even at personal risk. Her comm pinged with responses from her network. The information confirmed her suspicions. The syndicate is attempting to force out independent operators, she said. They wish to control all shipping lanes to the outer colonies. The disappeared ships were not accidents. I figured as much. Thomas slumped in his chair. What am I supposed to do? If I don't take this contract, someone else will. Someone who might not make it back. But Emily will have both her parental units returned safely, Zixka said firmly. Because I will be accompanying you. Zix, no. You're retired. You have a life here now. Students to terrify. To teach, she corrected. Same thing. Point is, I can't ask you to risk. You are not asking. I am telling. Besides, her mandibles clicked in amusement. Emily would never forgive me if I allowed anything to happen to you. She has already planned our participation in something called a father-daughter dance next month. Thomas blinked. She what now? I have been enlisted to teach you proper movement protocols. The offspring is concerned about your, quote, dad dancing. That startled a laugh out of him. Of course she is. His expression sobered. But seriously, Zix, this could be dangerous. Thomas. She used his given name rarely, only when absolute seriousness was required. In the past 6 months, I have learned to bake cookies, attended tea parties with a stuffed aquatic bird, and successfully navigated parent-teacher conferences without causing any diplomatic incidents. I think I can handle a few cargo raiders. That last one is debatable. You made Mrs. Johnson cry. She suggested Emily's artistic interpretation of xenobiology was unnecessarily graphic. The drawing was anatomically correct. It was a detailed diagram of your digestive system, which is fascinating from a scientific perspective. Their familiar bickering was interrupted by another comm alert. The cargo needed to be picked up within 48 hours. We'll need someone to watch Emily, Thomas said, already mentally planning. Already arranged. My contact in the diplomatic corps owes me several favors. Their offspring care facilities are the most secure in the sector. Thomas raised an eyebrow. Do I want to know why a diplomat owes you favors? Probably not, though it did involve that incident with the space hamster. Right. He stood, decision made. I'll prep the ship. You'll do whatever terrifying things you do to get ready? I prefer the term comprehensive security preparations, Zixka said primly. Also, we should stop by the market. Emily requested specific snacks for her stay at the diplomatic compound. Let me guess. Those weird blue cookies you got her hooked on? They are a delicacy on 6 worlds and technically classified as a controlled substance on 2 others. Of course they are. Thomas shook his head fondly. Sometimes I wonder what my life would be like if you'd succeeded in killing me that day. Much shorter, Zixka said matter-of-factly. Also far less interesting. Now shall we plan how to politely discourage the syndicate from their current business model? Thomas grinned. Just promise me one thing? Yes? Try not to enjoy terrifying them too much. You get that look in your eyes. I have no idea what you mean, Zixka said innocently, all 4 eyes gleaming with anticipation. Now, about those cargo raiders. The syndicate would soon learn an important lesson. There are many terrifying things in the universe, but nothing quite compares to a retired assassin protecting her found family. Especially when that family includes a human child who insists on making friendship bracelets for everyone. Even the bad guys. This seems excessive, Thomas said, watching Zixka methodically arrange her equipment in the cargo hold. Nonsense. I've packed quite lightly. You brought a sonic disruptor. For emergencies. And what appears to be a small tactical nuclear device. It's actually a concentrated EMP generator, Zixka corrected, carefully securing a container that hummed ominously. Nuclear devices are so imprecise. Also, the paperwork for those is ridiculous. Thomas pinched the bridge of his nose. A human gesture Zixka had learned indicated either a headache or mounting exasperation. Possibly both. Please tell me you at least said goodbye to Emily properly. Of course. Her mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment. She made me promise to bring back souvenirs. Apparently the diplomatic compound has excellent security, but boring snacks. The memory of dropping Emily off still made Zixka's primary heart clench uncomfortably. The child had been surprisingly stoic, right until the moment of departure when she'd launched herself at both adults in what humans called a group hug. Promise you'll both come back, she'd whispered fiercely. Pinky swear. Zixka had learned about the sacred human ritual of pinky swearing 2 months ago, when Emily had made her promise not to actually poison her art teacher, even if he did say her sculpture of a centaurian slug beast was disturbing. The fact that Zixka didn't technically have pinkies hadn't deterred Emily in the slightest. She'd simply declared that Mandible's swears were just as binding. All pre-flight checks are complete, Thomas announced, interrupting her reminiscence. Ready to head out? One moment. Zixka activated a series of nearly invisible devices around the cargo hold. The air shimmered briefly as security fields snapped into place. Now we may proceed. Thomas wisely chose not to comment on the clearly illegal modifications to his ship. Instead, he headed for the cockpit, pulling up the navigation charts for their route to the outer colonies. The course would take them through several poorly patrolled sectors, perfect ambush territory for cargo raiders. They lifted off smoothly from Omega Station, joining the steady stream of traffic heading out system. As they cleared the main shipping lanes, Zixka noticed Thomas glancing at a small holo displayed on his console. Emily's first day of school, he said softly, catching her look. She was so excited about her backpack. It had rockets on it. Zixka remembered that day. She'd personally scanned the backpack for tracking devices and installed a small shield generator in one of the pockets. Just in case. We will return, she said firmly. I have already promised both a pinky swear and a mandible swear. Breaking such bonds would be dishonorable. That earned her a chuckle. You know, when I first started hauling cargo, I never imagined I'd end up with an alien assassin as a best friend and co-parent. Former assassin, she corrected automatically. And I prefer the term auxiliary parental unit. Pretty sure that's not a real thing. I filed the paperwork last week. Your station's bureaucracy was quite accommodating once I explained the situation. Did you know there's actually a form for non-traditional family unit integration, extraterrestrial? Before Thomas could respond, multiple alerts lit up the console. 3 ships had just dropped out of FTL, moving to bracket their position. Right on schedule, Zixka said, her voice dropping to a dangerous purr. Shall we give them a proper welcome? The largest of the raider ships broadcast a message. Independent hauler, power down your engines and prepare for boarding. This is a routine inspection. Routine inspection? Thomas snorted. They're not even trying to be creative. Indeed, their tactical approach is embarrassingly predictable. Zixka's crystalline eyes gleamed as she accessed the ship's newly upgraded weapon systems. Would you like to handle this diplomatically, or shall I demonstrate why I was once known as the terror of the Carina Nebula? Diplomatic might be better. Less paperwork. You humans and your paperwork. She sounded almost disappointed. Very well. Zixka opened a channel to the raiders. When she spoke, her voice carried the kind of subtle menace that made hardened criminals seriously reconsider their life choices. Attention, unauthorized vessels. This ship is under my protection. I suggest you check your databases regarding the designation Zixka before proceeding. I would hate to have to explain to my human offspring why her favorite uncle won't be returning with the promised souvenirs. There was a long pause. Then, in rapid succession, all 3 ships engaged their FTL drives and vanished. Well, Thomas said after a moment, that was anticlimactic. Reputation can be a powerful deterrent. Though I am somewhat offended they didn't at least try to fight. I spent hours calibrating the new defense grid. There's always the return trip? True. She settled back into her station, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. Perhaps we should make a slight detour on the way back. I know of a delightful asteroid belt where cargo raiders often hide. Emily would appreciate exotic mineral samples for her geology collection. We're not starting an interstellar incident just so you can get better souvenirs. Of course not. Zixka's eyes glittered with mischief. The interstellar incident would be purely coincidental. They continued their journey, trading comfortable banter as the stars streaked by. Zixka found herself reflecting on how much her life had changed. A year ago, she would have considered this kind of routine cargo run beneath her dignity. Now she couldn't imagine being anywhere else. Her comm unit chimed with a message from the diplomatic compound. Emily had apparently started a xenobiology club and was teaching the other children about proper arachnoid appreciation. The attached image showed a crayon drawing of what appeared to be Zixka, teaching a group of stick figures how to blend into shadows. "Everything okay?" Thomas asked, noting her prolonged silence. "Yes," she said, carefully saving the image to her personal database. "Though we may need to have a discussion about which of my professional skills are appropriate for show and tell." "Do I want to know?" "Probably not. Though I must say, her grasp of stealth principles is quite advanced for her age." Thomas laughed, the sound filling the cockpit with warmth. "You know, most parents worry about their kids learning bad language or staying up too late. I have to worry about mine learning assassination techniques." "Former assassination techniques," Zixka corrected primly. "And their life skills. Very practical." "Right. Just maybe we stick to teaching her the defensive ones?" "Of course." She didn't mention that she'd already begun designing training programs for when Emily was older. Some things human parents were happier not knowing about. As they approached the outer colonies, Zixka's sensors detected no further pursuit. Either her reputation had spread quickly, or the syndicate was regrouping for a more coordinated effort. Either way, she would be ready. After all, she had promises to keep, both Pinky and Mandible sworn.